Welcome to the Tattoo Marketing Podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking to Sinny, who's actually the first apprentice we've ever had on the show. We talk about what it's like being apprentice in Las Vegas, how she got into tattooing, how she's found success through hard work and dedication to using social media that keeps her booked out, and what makes her love the shop that she's currently working at. She's a very talented apprentice, and we were very happy to have her on the show. Enjoy. Hey, really quick before we get into the podcast, if you could do us a giant favor and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening to this on, it's absolutely huge for us and also helps other artists and shop owners find this podcast. We really appreciate it. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Sinny. I'm a tattoo apprentice at Lotus Inc. It's a private studio in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's an all-female owned and operated studio. It's an appointment-only studio as well.
Got it. And did you grow up in Vegas? Are you from the area?
No, I'm not. I'm from Chicago originally, and I'm a transplant like a lot of people are in Vegas.
Yeah.
So I've been in Vegas for about 3 years now.
Okay. Cool. What took you into Vegas?
It's a little bit of a long story, but ultimately me moving to Vegas was more of me wanting to kind of like pursue like happiness and passions because I felt like a lot of my earlier like 20s, for instance, I was really chasing like money and my career. And I think at a certain point you realize that like you need a better balance. So Vegas was, a chance for me to find that better balance.
Got it. Definitely. And yeah, 100% agree. You chase money until you start to get a little bit of it, and then you're like, this doesn't actually make me super happy. It's not a like they say money can't buy happiness, and that's 100% true. Like you could have all the money or the best career in the world, but if you hate it, then what's the point, you know? So what brought you into tattooing?
Well, there's a long version and the short version.
Uh,
Um,
Long version's totally fine.
Okay. If you could cut out the long part and keep the short part,
If you just want to do the
I
short
think
part too, that's totally fine.
oh, okay, cool. Well, basically last year my partner wanted a tattoo and he needed someone to design it for him. And he had actually never even seen me draw before. But he was like, "Hey, do you want to take your crack at like this design?" And I did, and he ended up liking it so much that he went to go get it tattooed at the studio that I'm now apprenticing at. So the artist there, she saw my work and she was like, "Oh, this is really good. Like if this is something that, you would consider possibly going into for a career, I think that the owner of the shop may be looking for apprentices at some time in the near future." So it was a little bit of like being in the right place at the right time. Um, Before then, I think I'd always been looking for something creative to get into, but I didn't necessarily know what. And after she brought this up, I sat down and I was like, what is the life of a tattoo artist like? And it really like got me thinking that like, hey, this is something that, I think I would really enjoy.
Okay. Tell us a little about your background in the fine arts.
So, when it comes to my professional background, I'm actually an engineer. However, I've always been just really interested in the arts in all forms, like musical, visual. But when I was younger, I was that kid who was like always drawing in class. My high school superlative, I think, was actually best artist because I was always drawing. Um, and it was something that I think I've always wanted to go into, like having some sort of like creative profession. I just didn't necessarily know what because I wanted to, also make a living for myself. And there's this stigma that like if you go into art, you're going to be a starving artist forever. So I kind of chose a more socially responsible path with the hopes of eventually making my way into something more creative. When it comes to, I guess, like my own like art background and skills, I'd say I'm self-taught in, all the art that I do. And that was like a skill that I brought to my apprenticeship. When it comes to like editing videos and making reels, like photography, all of that, I feel like I'm learning on the go, but I'm also self-taught in all of that. I did like marketing in when I was like in college and in high school, like very informal stuff,
Mhm.
but like all of that was self-taught. And in a way, I feel like all of that accumulated and I've been able to like transfer those skills into my tattooing like apprenticeship now and like trying to grow like my own business with all those transferable skills.
Definitely. And that's, I mean, as a tattoo artist, you can go to stay at the same shop, go to different shops, like start your own shop, especially if you have your own personal brand, which is from like I said, how I found you was looking on Instagram. Somebody sent me one of your videos, and I kind of started diving through your stuff, and it is very professional looking. It does like you have at least a handle on making reels, and like they look really good. Um, it's kind of like we were talking about. People think tattooing is just drawing and tattooing people, and that's it. And that's not how it goes, unfortunately. At least if you want to be a successful artist. Um, so you were gonna do engineering, found out as a tattoo artist you can make really good money, honestly. Um, what so you go in there, they kind of talk to you about the stuff that they're seeing you draw. You start an apprenticeship. What was that like? I mean, how long have you been apprenticing right now?
I will say I did apply for my apprenticeship. I did have an interview. I did have to like kind of present a portfolio for myself. It was competitive. And then once I started, I'd say, I mean, every apprenticeship is going to be different. Personally, in mine, when I started it, like the first couple weeks, I was literally just told to draw, and I was given like different prompts of things to draw. And it was basically to get an idea of like composition and understanding like what looks good in a tattoo aesthetically and like what level of detail can you fit in certain size tattoos. So it's like just to get a feel for that. And then eventually I transitioned over to fake skin, and with thick skin, it was kind of a progression of starting with like slow, simple, like line work and designs that were just like simple and making those clean. And then eventually, going into shading and then combining the two and doing like simple flash pieces and doing more elaborate pieces and just practicing that until my mentor felt like I was ready to start on skin. And that's when I asked like family and friends if anyone wanted to volunteer. And then after I tattooed them, it was kind of like a baseline to see like where my skill was. And if my mentor felt like that was appropriate, I was then able to open up my bookings and start taking clients, which happened in February
In
this year.
February. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's the craziest part to me is like, again, I've looked at your work. It's really good. I figured you were like getting close to your 2 years and getting ready to graduate. Cause we talk to a lot of artists, we talk to a lot of shop owners. Getting an apprentice that's been tattooing for what, 4 months and putting out like the line work you're doing is mind boggling. Did you draw like a lot growing up? Is this something that kind of came naturally to you, or how's it been? Because again, you don't
I like
most people don't just like start tattooing, they're that good. You're like, damn.
Thank you. I mean, I do think I have a very like atypical background when it comes to this. I did draw a lot as a kid, and it's funny because once I got the apprenticeship, my mentor was like, "Cool," because I came to my interview with like pen and paper and like actual physical drawings, and she's like, "Oh, this is great, but now you have to convert it into like digital art because that's what the studio uses. That's how you like make adjustments like on
Mhm.
the spot really quickly." And I actually I hadn't transitioned to digital art yet. So I learned to like use Procreate, use like my iPad and everything once I got my apprenticeship. So I was learning to do that while also learning to tattoo. Um, and then once I got into like physically working on face skin and on people, I realized that like tattooing for me feels a lot like drawing. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I picked it up very quickly because I feel like it feels a lot like drawing on like physical, like pen and paper, whatever physical mediums there are.
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
I will say, oh, just to add to that,
Mhm.
um, like tattooing is something that, if there's the potential for it to be a full-time thing, I want it to be. Right now, my eggs are not all in one basket.
Mhm.
But while I was doing my apprenticeship, keep in mind that I was kind of treating it like its own full-time job. I was going in like Mondays to Fridays and putting in a lot of time. And the time that I wasn't in the studio, I was drawing at home. So I think because I was able to put in that much time, that's part of the reason why I was able to progress as much as I could as well.
Definitely. There's a lot like it's very hard to find a good apprentice from what I hear these days. So, and finding one that was actually willing to like actually put in the work and the time and the effort. I've got a buddy in town who owns a shop with 7 artists, and like he's had one really good apprentice the last couple years, and like she was willing to do that kind of extra stuff and put in the time. It does seem these days that's a rarer and rarer thing to find somebody with that work ethic, and not just that, but somebody that looks like they're going above and beyond just the apprenticeship. Like you said, getting trying to get better at reels and marketing and like actually working on the composition of your stuff. I'll say like the best artists I know are the ones that have like, they've been tattooing 20 years, but they're still I was talking to a client yesterday who's a phenomenal black and gray realism artist up in the Bay Area. And he's like, this isn't where I'm gonna end, like, I'm still changing what I'm doing, I'm still trying out new things after 20 plus years, and this guy's, booked out 6 months, and, but having I guess, hunger to continue learning, which is kind of the feeling I get from you is, and that can't really be taught so much as it's a hunger for knowledge and to get better, and it seems kinda like you have that, so I have no doubt that, um, in a couple of years, I think yeah, you're gonna be really, really good. You're already great, better than some artists
Thank you.
tattooing for quite a while. Um, so what are your goals in the industry? I mean, is this the thing you think you wanna do full time for the rest of your life, or where do you see it headed, if you've thought that far?
I have thought that far ahead. I'm a very calculated person.
Yeah.
Definitely comes from my background. I mean, when I got the apprenticeship, I actually sat down and the first thing I did was like kind of make a list of goals, like like quarterly, biannual, like year long goals for myself. And for me, like I recognized how competitive the industry was. And I was like, if I'm gonna put effort into this, like I'm gonna do it and I'm not going to let this opportunity go to waste because I am mentoring with, a very well known like artist here in Vegas. And I just feel like that's an opportunity most people don't get to get. And I just figured like I'm just going to do the best that I can. So I really did think like I mean, I think when it comes to tattooing, I see it as like a skill, like a lifelong skill, regardless of if I do it for the rest of my life or if I like have something else that I do and I do it on the side. It's that skill is always going to be there. And for me, I feel like if things go well, like I would be open to tattooing for the rest of my life. I think like the client interactions are really fun. The
Mhm.
fact that it's a creative outlet is what I was looking for. It's very rewarding, and I feel like also monetary wise, the potential is there for it to be like self-sustaining as well. So goal wise, I mean, it would be nice to be booked months in advance and not have to worry about that. It things like I guess when your quality of work is there and people like want to work with you, I feel like you're also treated with more respect. And that's also something that like I'd like to get toward, not having to worry about if you're going to get bookings. Cause I know like with tattooing, the money is not necessarily guaranteed month by month. It's something that you have to constantly work for. So those are all like different things that like in the future I wouldn't want to have to worry about. And then also like to add to that, I'd like to eventually like be able to be a guest artist and travel to like different cities because personally I love to travel a lot. And if I could like mix in a little bit of work here and there, I feel like the exposure to other artists or like even I see a lot of guest artists come to our studio. I feel like it exposes me to techniques that like maybe my mentor doesn't like isn't super knowledgeable about or like that's just not her field. But being able to see like other artists like do their work, it's just really impressive. And like those are other skills that I'd eventually like to have as well.
Oh yeah. Percent. If you like to travel, tattoo artist is where it's at. All the conventions, the guest spots, like you can go anywhere in the world and make money, which is
Mhm.
psh, doing what you love. I mean, what else could you ask for? That's pretty darn awesome. So you've been apprenticing at the same shop since you started. What made you choose that shop? Because I mean, you're in Vegas. You can throw a rock and hit 15 shops down there. What made you choose that shop, and what's made you stick with it? Because one of the things we see in the industry a lot is apprentices. The smallest little thing could piss them off, and they're gone. They're off to the next shop. So what's made you content with where you're at?
I think the two things that are most important are finding like a shop like atmosphere that fits for you, and then also finding a mentor that you feel comfortable with. So, first, in regards to the shop, It is an all-female studio, and I think just I feel like tattoos are very intimate. You're spending a lot of time with people, and, people are either, like, half naked or, they're exposed in some way, which makes it very vulnerable, and I just wanted to be in a shop that I felt like was, very open, and I feel like being in an all female studio personally for me was something that like I felt a little bit more comfortable with. If you also kind of look at like the layout of the shop has two studios. One of them has a bunch of like small private studios in it, and the other one is like a more open concept like space. So I felt like that also provided me the option of either working in either environment. And for me, like I'm a little bit more introverted. I like having my own closed off space. So the fact that like there was like a studio with smaller like private studios, for me, I was like, oh, that's a space where I could thrive in. If it was just like an open studio where like everyone's talking, music's blaring, I feel like that would be like too much for me and I would feel uncomfortable. So like that's like environment. And then the next thing would be, I guess, like finding a mentor that you think is a good fit for you. I think one, looking at like my mentor's style. For me, like she does a lot of like bold work. She does anime. She like does like little pops of color. Those are all elements that like I think uh, are design wise what I would do myself. So I wasn't gonna go looking for a tattoo artist who's like a full on realism color artist
Mhm.
because that's not what I want to do. So I chose someone whose style I respect and want to like kind of emulate. And then on top of that, I think I looked at my mentor not only as like a tattoo artist, but also as a person. Like age wise, we're fairly similar. And like she's also owned other businesses before. So I felt like I could learn from her, just as like a life mentor, even as a friend. And those were all things that like I calculated in as well. Cause I was like, I don't necessarily want like a boss who's going to micromanage me. I want someone who I can like have like casual, informal conversations with and who has like interests that I think I also align with. And just having those two, I feel like are like the foundation of like what makes me comfortable going into the shop every single day.
Definitely. And you touched on something that I don't think is thought of enough when looking for a excuse me, a mentor is the business side of it. Like there's so much that can be learned. The business side is the hard part for artists for the most part. That is, and again, artists are stereotypical artists. Like that's business is not their forte for a lot of them. They don't want to do it. But finding a mentor that is really good at the business side of it and the marketing side of it and has had that success, like not only are you going to learn what you need to be a successful artist, but in the future you want to open a shop or things to actually keep yourself booked. That's almost as important, if not more important, than actually knowing the art. Because that's, I mean, having a successful business, if this is something you want to do in the long run, is for most people like the end game. They want to turn this into a career and build an asset, and um, I don't think that's thought of enough when choosing where to apprentice or who to apprentice for. So I like that. That was a good point that you brought up. So I also noticed you're already booked out this month, which again, with how the economy is rarer and rarer, especially for an apprentice. Um, what like how do you get your clients now? Is it mostly through Instagram? Is it people coming into the shop that are walk-ins? What's your typical marketing strategy at the moment?
So the shop is an appointment only shop. And, the upside to that is like, you know what you're getting into every time you go into work. The downside is you don't get walk ins and you don't get like that people like interaction firsthand to like get more clientele. So everything, all of the clients that I get are completely through social media. I think once, like I signed up to be a tattoo artist and not knowing it, like realistically, I have to wear multiple hats a day. I feel like my own secretary, I'm my own social media manager, I'm a content creator, I'm a photographer. So all of that goes into trying to expand my social like media following because whether it's tattoo artists following me or like potential clients, it's all a way to like kind of spread awareness and of like what my content is and what my art style is. So everything I do depends on social media and Instagram is the primary app that I use. It's got like the best like actual conversion rate to like finding clients. And Instagram Reels specifically tend to do better. than than photos. And I did some research myself on like, what the algorithm prioritizes, like how like what hooks people, like SEO principles, all of that. So I've looked into all of that, and like basically I try to use that into the way I market. And what's really interesting with Instagram is like if you have the business account, you can kind of see insights and you can see like what's shared, what's saved, what's liked, etc. Like what sort of audience does it attract? Is it men? Is it women? So every time I make something, I'll kind of like look at the insights and I'll see like what picked up traction and what didn't. Depending on what picks up traction, I'll do more content of that style. I'll kind of look at, like per video, like or per post, like what I guess like what content I think I just said that. What content is shared the most? And then like just basically try and like follow trends and see like what works and what doesn't. Yeah.
Point. So what other, and 100% agree, Instagram through all our testing works better than Facebook, TikTok, all the other places. I would say Facebook, if you're looking for bigger pieces, we've seen work pretty well just because it's, I hate to say this, an older demographic, because that's my favorite. I'm becoming an old man, which is great. Um, but I mean, do you do content for like, are you on TikTok? Do you do all the other platforms, or is it primarily a focus on Instagram?
I claimed my handle on TikTok, but then but
Okay.
then I realized that, like, while it's easy for videos to go viral on TikTok, most people aren't necessarily gonna trace it to the source and contact like that tattoo artist. They're probably like gonna find it and go to whatever their local tattoo artist is and, you know, get it done there. So I just focus on Instagram, and it's just one of those things where it's like, focus on one thing and do it well.
Definitely, definitely. And again, looking at your Instagram, like a lot of shops, a lot of artists, it will only be pictures of their work. That's it. I had a tattoo artist that's fairly well known. I was talking to him about that. He's like, people will come up to me at conventions that I've talked to, forever on Instagram, and I have no clue who they are or what their face looks like because all they post is their work. And obviously people want to know what the work looks like, but I know before I get tattooed by somebody, like I want to know what their like general disposition is. Like I want to know their attitude. I want to know how they talk. Cause like I'm gonna be sitting in a chair for 8 hours. Like that's a huge part of it. I think that is missed out by so many tattoo artists. And I know there's a lot that are very introverted and they don't want to talk on camera and stuff like that or show their face. But at the end of the day, again, it's a business thing and it's a marketing thing. And that's going to help you be successful. So again, when it comes to your reels and stuff like that, it's a lot of actually you and you show off your work. And I think that's definitely the way to go. Again, it's not a personal thing. It's a business decision and a marketing decision that is good for your career.
Yeah, thank you. I will say that I mean, I feel like I was trying to be creative with the way I was like marketing myself because I did notice like a lot of people only show final results and they don't like really show the steps in between. And I was like, well, as an apprentice, like that's kind of like a niche marketing like area that I can try and cover. Like, what are the in between steps to greatness, and on top of that, I noticed not a lot of people do show their faces, and honestly, it was, like, a tough decision to, like, put my face on, like, the internet and, like, make very like, be in reels and whatnot, because I will say it honestly makes me uncomfortable. I am, like, more on the introverted side, and I'd like to keep it that way, but because, like, the business side of me, like, would rather, succeed than, like, stop at, like, the discomfort part of it, that's why I make the videos that I do. I will say that's the hardest part, but it's also, like, been the part that's, like, made it rewarding because,
Mm,
like you said, a lot of clients, like, have reached out to me because, like, they felt like they would be comfortable working with me based on, like, how I present myself, and, like, just how honest I am with things. I will say it's also the thing that gives me the most critique as well. I think there are a lot of, I think, like, there are some people in the industry who are still, like, very, like, rigid and, like, there's kind of, like, this old stigma that, like, tattoos just have to be, like, bold, thick, like, traditional lines and whatnot. or like tattoo artists have to look a certain way. And like, I don't look like the traditional like tattoo artist. I don't have like
Yeah.
tattoos everywhere. And like, at the end of the day, for me, like, tattoos are for you. My tattoos are for me. Like, if they're not visible, like that's just a personal choice. So I do get a lot of backlash actually for not looking like a traditional tattoo artist. But at the end of the day, like I'm focusing on, the clients who do want to reach out to me for my artwork, not because of my appearance. And that's
Mhm.
kind of who I'm trying to target.
And I can tell you from personal experience, you could have the cure for cancer and someone would still talk shit on Instagram. Like it does not matter. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, my mentor, she's been doing it for years, and she'll tell me, like, she still gets people who, like, tell her, like, "Oh, you're doing your line work wrong."
Mhm.
And it's like, obviously, she's doing it wrong if she's booked out for the year and has, like, 200,000 followers, like
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's crazy. There's always gonna be critique.
Always. Always. And it's never from somebody that's more successful than you. That's the thing. It's never from somebody that's a better artist. It's always from people that are just mad at life. Like I said, I mean, I've been doing online marketing for almost 10 years now. Um, And we used to have a fitness company that sold lifting wraps, straps, belts. And I had a friend who's actually a tattoo artist, and she was one of my models for it. And just beautiful woman. Um, and the amount of hate she would get when we posted her stuff is just like, how does this help anybody? It was always from like these young, like 20-year-old guys. It was like the same person every time, like a different like Kyle or Chad. And you're just like, what the fuck, dude? But anyway, yeah. So you're always, no matter what, somebody's gonna talk shit. Do you use any kind of like AI stuff?
Um, yes. Well, I use ChatGPT, but not for the way I use ChatGPT is actually to help me figure out whatever the best titles would be for my Instagram reels. So anything that like would hook people, I'll kind of come up with different options and I'll like plug it in and like ask, which one do you think will do the best? I also use it to help me generate my hashtags sometimes when I'm like, what are going to be the best optimal hashtags? So you can only have up to 30, I believe, in a post. So I do that based on each post. And then I'll also use it sometimes like to brainstorm if I like haven't drawn flash or haven't like just drawn new pieces in a while. And I'll just say like, what are popular tattoo ideas and kind of come up with the list. So that's the only way that I use any sort of AI. I don't use it for my artwork. I use it more so for the marketing side
Got it.
of Instagram.
And we've actually put out videos on that. It's like, hey, if you are having problems thinking of ideas of reels to make, ask Chat GPT. It's like we use it for a ton of stuff. And it's, there's the whole very heated debate in the tattoo industry about AI, and people are worried about it taking jobs and blah blah blah. But it's just a tool, like anything else. It's just a tool to save you time to get you over. Like if you're stuck, you're not brainstorming too well, you can go ask it. Give me 10 ideas of videos to make for a tattoo industry. What are the most popular things that are looked up? Um, or even, I mean, Mid Journey is also one of those things right now that is very, I guess, highly debated. I was at the Evergreen Invitational like 6 weeks ago and actually went to a seminar on it put on by a tattoo artist. And he made a very good point. It's like, okay, you say it's not original work that you're taking when you're asking Midjourney to create a photo. Well, what is it when someone brings you that picture off Pinterest? You know, or when somebody's drawing the same skull that's on a Google search result that 1,000 other artists have. Again, it's just a tool. It's a reference image, but I would argue that it's even more creative because it's usually something that is fairly unique, and you can just make so many little tweaks to get this reference image off of it. Um, anyway, I like AI stuff, and yeah, it's
I like it too, and, like, I don't necessarily consider it cheating, like, I don't use it simply because I just don't use it, but for anyone that does, like, I think it's totally fair game, and at the end of the day, what like, even if AI generates an image for you, it's up to, like, you as a tattoo artist to execute it, and realistically, like, the execution is, like, what separates
Mhm.
people. I feel like everyone could do the exact same tattoo design, and it would all look different from coming from each artist because everyone has like different stylistic preferences and like just different ways that they would execute it. So really like, even if you are all doing whatever the same AI image spits out, I feel like it would look different depending on each artist.
Oh, 100%. And he gave us the stats. It's like one in like 200 million will actually spit out the same exact same image twice. So it's a pretty original place, or pretty good place to get original ideas and reference images. Um, but it's just kind of where the industry is going. And again, it's just a tool. Um,
Mhm.
but as someone that is kind of younger in their early stages of their career in tattooing, that's kind of what I want to get your opinion on, is the AI stuff. Because kind of segueing from, there's some older grumpy people. They're also the ones that hate AI. And then there's a lot of tattoo artists and shop owners that have embraced it. And, people didn't like when the rotary came out. That doesn't mean like it still took over the industry. Like, some people just hate change. That's how it is.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what it is. Um, so tattooing for a couple months now. You're getting a lot of stuff through Instagram, and I know you're early in your career, and you haven't been doing this too long. But as far as like making content to get new clients, what advice would you give to tattoo artists and other apprentices that are just kind of breaking into the industry and trying to find their kind of their niche, their style, trying to get clients in? 'Cause again, when you're first starting out, unless your shop is actually feeding you like the walk-ins that come in, it can be fairly hard, especially over the last year and a half or something, to get, I mean, booked out a week, let alone a month.
I always say I don't feel qualified to give advice, but I can say what I did personally. I'd say first and foremost, like be flexible and adaptable. Like try different things. Like if one video concept doesn't work, try it a little bit differently, incorporate different elements. Um, Secondly, like if your goal is like just to get like followers, for instance, do things that are trending. If your goal is to get like clients, focus on client specific videos. If your goal is to reach other tattoo artists, do content that like is more like behind the scenes. Because it started out with me doing kind of like day in the life videos of what I did as a tattoo like apprentice. And I realized a lot of the followers that I was getting from it were other tattoo artists, which I thought was like really cool because they would share my stuff. But then it didn't actually correlate to an increase in the amount of bookings that I was getting because tattoo artists were following me, not clients. So after that, I've like started to shift into doing more client-based videos, like hence why I did the video on like how to properly book a tattoo appointment. Because I know, I was just kind of looking at like the demographic that like my shop uh attracts, and it's a lot of like younger people. So I assume a lot of them, it's going to be their first tattoo. Maybe they don't know what the process is like. So I've sort of tried to like shift over into like, targeting that audience a little bit, but then just trying to do like general information that maybe like like clients may not know about at all. And I also like even ask my clients during my sessions with them, like what would interest you, or like what made you go to me? And I just try to take feedback from a bunch of different sources that I can.
Nice. That's good advice to actually look at the analytics, 'cause I don't think enough people do that. Because one of my favorite sayings is the numbers never lie. I mean, you
Mhm.
know what works, you know what's gaining traction, do more of that. Split test stuff. Like, there's a million different ways to just look at those and just figure out how to get better and stuff that's going to go more viral. And don't think enough people actually take advantage of the tools that are already presented to you when you have an Instagram account. And you do need to have a business account, I believe, but that's like the click of a button, right? You can switch it from a person.
Mhm.
Yeah. So pretty much anybody that's a tattoo artist should be doing, should be doing. And I think one of the other things that gets kind of scares people away is they think they have to have like this professional camera and this professional microphone. And without a doubt, that does help and it makes it look way better. But even, I mean, phones these days, like your audio might not be as crisp. It might, you're not going to get depth of field out of a phone that's not, processed. And that's how they make it so it doesn't look super good. But just making it at all is the first step. You know what I mean? And I think that intimidates a lot of people. Like when you started, were you just using your phone? Like now it looks like you're using a good camera and stuff like that. And it definitely does make a difference. But, using your tools at hand and not getting overwhelmed is like the first step. Just use what you got.
Mhm. Yeah, I use both my phone. I've got a DSLR as well,
Nice.
and I've only just started, like, learning how to use it. It was something my dad gave me, and honestly, I'll go home and I'll look at my photos some days, and some days, like, my phone looks better than the DSLR
Mm.
because it's like the tools are there, it's just how you use them. Um, but I kind of view it as, like, an investment, right? Like, if you want to do well at tattooing, kinda, like, focus on the fundamentals first. Like, the fundamentals of tattooing is, like, getting your line work and stuff down. So, like, I invested in my machine. And now that, like, I've progressed a little bit more, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can invest a little bit more into, like, learning about photography, learning like, getting, like, different lenses for my camera and, like, improving at that because, like, in the long run, if my, like, photography and the aesthetic of my page looks good, that attracts more people. Or, like, look into, like, let's say I'm making reels for myself. Right now, I do use my phone and I record everything with my phone, but let's say I had, like, a lower quality phone, for instance, like, I could look into, like, getting a microphone.
Mhm.
There's so many ways to supplement, and, I just view it as, like, it's an investment into my tattoo career. I use, like, CapCut to edit all of my videos. And for a while, I was just using the free version. And I was like, well, if I look at it and I think about like what the annual like membership is or like fee to subscribe to this is, like, really, if it improves the quality of my work enough that I'm getting more clients, realistically, I can make up this membership fee through like one appointment, basically. So I
Mm.
kind of viewed it that way, where it's like sometimes you have to invest a little bit, but the outcome is going to be worth it.
Definitely, definitely. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. And I think that's a good point too. Is like you really don't need more than a. 'Cause do you use CapCut on your iPad or do you use it on your phone?
I do it all in my phone.
Yeah, it probably doesn't
Yeah,
take a
so it keeps
super
me
long time.
mobile.
Yeah.
I will say I do invest a lot of time into, like, editing my videos, trying to concisely say all the information that I want in, like, the minute and a half, like, duration that Instagram allows you. I spend a lot of time editing my videos, but I feel like because I do, like, I've seen, the results of it. So I do spend a lot of time editing, but it's just kind of the process of being a tattoo artist. You're not just an artist, you have to do all the things on the sidelines as well.
Yeah. Like you said, you have to wear all the different hats that you don't think about when you're going in to become a tattoo artist or thinking about apprenticing. There's at least to be successful. Yeah, there's a lot of artists, a lot of and a lot of apprentices that just wear that one hat and are willing to sit around and wait on walk-ins, which again, 2 years ago when everybody had like stimulus money and stuff, like the industry was nuts. Like you could do that, but not so much over the last year. It's definitely industry's changed a lot. Not as many people. I mean, there's plenty of people getting tattoos. It's just that pie is getting cut a little bit thinner and thinner. So, um, and I think with what you're doing is stuff like, the industry is projected to double again by 2030, which is mind boggling how fast it's growing in the US. But this stuff that you're talking about now is going to be like a must in 5 years. What's going to happen when there's double the shops, double the apprentices, double the tattoo artists? Um, you know, something we preach a lot of is the stuff we do marketing now, like we do a lot of Instagram ads, Google ads, landing pages, stuff like that for the shops we work with. Right now is a really good time to start doing it because in 5 years, like this is going to be mandatory, like it is in a lot of the bigger industries. Like, the tattoo industry is becoming less taboo. More and more people are getting into it. There's a lot more money going into it. So, we think it's changed a lot the last 5 years. Give it another five, it's going to be a whole different thing than it was, way more competitive. And the stuff you're doing to stick out is going to be one, mandatory to be successful, and two, um, something, people should just get used to, it's- again, it's scary to get started and shoot those videos, especially if you're an introvert. I am too, but you do it enough, you just don't care anymore. It doesn't bother you. You know what I mean? I remember the first podcast I did, I was like, there was a lot of editing. I'll just say that there was a lot of editing in that podcast, and it was all me, not the artist I was talking to. So one of the first ones we did, we actually had an ink master with someone who had been on ink master on. So he's, used to it. He's been on TV, and I'm just like, hi, I don't know what to do now. I have a list of questions, but um, you put yourself out there enough, take enough videos, edit them enough times, it just becomes a second nature. And no, it's nervous about.
I was gonna say once you mentioned Ink Master, I actually did have someone who I think came across my video, the same one that you did, who reached out to me and then like he ended up like scrolling through my page and he was like, "Wow, you're just an apprentice. Like uh, your work's really good for an apprentice, and I'm really impressed." And he was actually a previous contestant on Ink Master, so like
No,
getting kind of like this feedback from him was super validating. And what is like, it's hard, like, the days where you get, like, a bunch of critique, but, like, on the days where you get, like, something that's really validating, it is worth it, and he was saying that, like, to see someone like me, so young and new in the industry, like, doing as well as I am and, like, trying to come up with, like, innovative ways to, like, market myself, he said it was, like, very impressive, and it actually, like, made him want to, like, you know expand and learn new things and like, just just be a little bit more creative in the ways that he's doing things rather than like trying to focus on the past. And he was saying like he's actively trying to like get more involved with social media and do all of that because, that's how things are changing. So not everyone's entirely resistant to it,
yeah,
but it was nice to hear from, someone more experienced that, what I'm doing is kind of the right move and I'm on the right track.
that's awesome. That's awesome to get that feedback from somebody that's been so successful in the industry. And I will say, like, it's the negative voices that are always the loudest. Like for every like one person that's talking shit on a post, there's a bunch of people that got value out of it and saw like what the possibilities are using like Instagram and stuff like that. So, like I said, people just like to talk shit. It's ridiculous, but it's never somebody that's more successful than the person they're talking shit to. So anyway, I've taken up about an hour of your time. I massively appreciate this. Any parting advice? Put you on the spot. For any apprentices or people that are thinking about getting into the industry, just anything you say that you can attribute your, again, a very short time you've seen some success, and like I honestly have no doubt, and I genuinely mean this. Like looking at your work, looking at what you're doing, I have no doubt you're going to be very successful in this industry. So yeah, any parting words?
I will say if you want to go into it, I mean, fully go into it, like, I don't think there's anything more valuable than your time, and if you're going to invest your time into something, might as well do it well. So, do research on, look at what the successful people are doing. And if you want to be a successful person, basically try and emulate that and try and look into, how they are doing the things that they're doing. So I feel like that's the best advice that I can give, whether that's tattooing or whether that's life. I just feel like if you're going to invest your time in something, do it wholeheartedly.
Definitely solid advice. Solid advice from a young person. I like it. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.